This prelude song is called My City of Ruins, and it's one of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar. And I felt like it was relevant to what I'm going to try to talk about today, so yeah, it goes like this. Was a blood-red circle on the cold dark ground. The rain is falling down. The church doors swung open, I can hear the organ song. The congregation's gone. My city of my city of ruin. Now the sweet bells of mercy drift through the evening trees. Young men on the corner like scattered leaves. Boarded up windows, empty streets, while my brother's down on his knees. My city of ruins, my city of ruins. Come on, rise up. 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 Now those tears on the pillow, darling, where you slept, and you took my heart when you left. Without your sweet kiss, my soul is lost, my friend. Tell me, how do I begin again when my city's in ruins? Now with these hands, with these hands, with these hands, with these hands, I pray, Lord. Pray for the strength, Lord. Pray for the faith, Lord. Pray for the love, Lord. Pray for the faith, Lord. Pray for the love, Lord. Pray for the strength, Lord. All right. Pray
Welcome everyone to Taos United Community Church, where we are all welcome, no matter what we believe, what we used to believe, what we want to believe. This house of prayer belongs to you and to me and to us. And there's a car beeping. I don't know if that's anybody's here. Anyway, are there any announcements today? Thank you, Christine. Okay, I have an announcement. I am going to be in Philadelphia for the next 4 to 6 weeks, helping my daughter move her dad's stuff out of his house and get it on the market. And yeah, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And I've got a schedule of who's filling the pulpit, and lots of people are going to help get this together. And I will join you as often as I can on Zoom. But I just wanted you to know that. And so if you have any questions, by all means, ask. And I thank you for making that space for me to do that. Okay, let's take a comfortable seat and breathe. And when we breathe in, think God's will. And when we breathe out, be done. In, God's will. Out, be done. Holy ones, we come together today with hope, with some fear and trepidation perhaps, with a host of feelings and experiences. We come with all that we are to find a place together, to find some renewal, some refreshment, some wisdom, so that we can go out and be in the world, your hands and feet. Today we are excited to have Michael bringing the message, and we're going to begin, as we always begin, with a song and with candle lighting. So I invite you to come up and light a candle. Oops, the first one wasn't lit. Oops. So I'm going to have to rub 2 sticks together. My Girl Scout skills are few. Thank you. So we come with an intention, a prayer, a person, a something special that we are praying for. We light the candle, place it in the bowl of sand, and we sing Wade in the Water, which is number 13? Number 13. So come on up. Oops.
leader looks like the Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. Looks like the band that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Instead of wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, look over yonder, what do I see? God's gonna trouble the water. The Holy Ghost coming on me. God's gonna trouble the water. Set away in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. If you don't believe I've been redeemed, God's gonna trouble the water. Just follow me down to Jordan stream. God's gonna trouble the water. Set wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Set away in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Good morning. The first reading today is a poem from Rainer Maria Rilke. You are not surprised at the force of the storm. You have seen it growing. The trees flee. Their flight sets the boulevard streaming. And you know, he whom they flee is the one you move toward. All your senses sing him as they stand at the window. The weeks stood still in summer. The tree's blood rose. Now you feel it wants to sink back into the source of everything. You thought you could trust that power when you plucked the fruit. Now it becomes a riddle again, and you a stranger. Summer was like your house, where each thing stood. Now you must go out into your heart as onto a vast plain. Now the immense loneliness begins. The days go numb. The wind sucks the world from your senses like withered leaves. Through the empty branches, the sky remains. It is what you have. Be earth song now, and even song. Be the ground lying under that sky. Be modest now, like a thing ripened until it is real, so that he who began it all can feel you when he reaches for you.
morning. I feel so lucky that I get to read this reading. Thank you, Michael. This is from Sophie Strand, The Flowering Wand, Rewilding the Sacred Masculine, from chapter 16, Letting Your Wings Dry. The dragonfly's transformation is agonizingly slow. A pro-larva bursts from its egg, searches for water, then hatches and molts. But this is just the beginning of the journey. The larva will hatch and molt another 5 to 14 times, sometimes spending up to 5 years in the process of becoming. Finally, after having shed not one version of itself, but many, the larva crawls into shallower water, poking its head up and slowly tasting air. It breathes for the first time under cover of darkness. When it has literally caught its breath, it drags its wet body onto land, climbing a flower stalk or a hardy blade of grass where it can rest. When it has secured itself, it totally redistributes the liquid of its body, beginning to push out of itself. Once out of the exuvia of shed skin, the slimy, shiny dragonfly waits for its legs to harden and its wings to dry. The emergence process takes up to 3 hours, usually time for the early morning.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah. The poem that Jerry read has been the psalm today that was recommended in the lectionary was Psalm 29, which is somewhat titled "The God of the Storm" or something like that. And it was close enough to that poem for me, and because that poem has for me been something of a psalm about storms and God and the storm. Since the afternoon in San Francisco when I picked that book off the shelf on the road trip after my mom died and read that and, kind of started crying in the bookstore. And then, the reading from Carrie is a much more recent discovery. That book in its entirety is rich and mind-blowing, and I've already started listening to it again as an audiobook because there's so much to hear and learn and dig deeper with. Anyway, I hope this isn't too meandery, and I hope that there's I will be discovering what I'm trying to say as much as you are as I read this. Often when I discover that I am suddenly in the middle of writing a poem or a new song lyric, it is in the swirling wake of a sharpened moment when the short collection of words, strung together in some way that I find fascinating or compelling and new, speaks itself aloud inside of my head, in a voice different but similar to my own. And mostly it is a game of waiting, paying attention, and listening. I have been waiting and trying to pay attention and trying to listen for a few weeks now, not being sure how or where to begin this message. And the more I realized that what I felt most drawn to speak about was grief, the more unsure I became of what that beginning place should be. in this season of the world, with juniper berries beginning to ripen while the threat of forest fires every year, hotter and more persistent, makes itself present ever earlier in the spring, with the snow melt coming down off the mountain and filling the streams and acequias, while the government of the country in which I live continues to send money and weapons to another country that is carpet bombing refugee civilians, men, women, and children living in tents. With the lilacs and honeysuckles and poppies blooming, while I speak with my friends near and far, young and old, about their struggles with housing, employment, healthcare, families, food security, relationships, with the crickets and frogs awakening their nighttime serenades, while razor wire and slashed water jugs are left to greet those crossing river and desert in hopes of a better future, with the finches and robins and doves filling the newly green trees with song, while so many, including many veterans, sleep in the alleys and at the edges of our towns, with the full moon rising over the eastern ridge, while I think of my dad and my siblings as we approach the July that will mark 10 years since my mom died, the October that will mark 3 years since Pam died, and thinking of Brother Louie and Rosemary and Avis and CJ. There's a lot to grieve. And I do not claim to know how best to navigate the waterways of grief, though I have spent a fair amount of time wandering its delta in boats of various size and shape. It seems there's a balance that must be struck between getting stuck and leaving it behind altogether. Martine Prechtel says, grief is active. Grief is movement, not stagnation. How to live the grief, move in it, move with it, through it, and let it move through you. Here's a poem by David White, one of my favorites. It's called The Well of Grief. Those who will not slip beneath the still surface on the well of grief, turning down through its black water to the place that we cannot breathe, will never know the source from which we drink, the secret water, cold and clear, nor find in the darkness glimmering the small round coins thrown by those who wished for something else. So perhaps the better way to navigate the patternless, ever-changing waterways of grief is not from the wooden seat of a boat, however metaphorical, but to swim. Not to remain on the surface, analyzing and critiquing, trying to read and follow the currents from a vantage point physically and intellectually removed from the matter at hand. When your feet touch the bottom of the flowing stream, you very well may become aware of undercurrents moving differently than those you can see on the surface, where they might take you, what they might teach you, what small round coins they might stir up in the bottom of things that you would never have otherwise found. And though I have spent a lot of time in these boats feeling grief, watching grief, I have not done a lot of swimming. And I think that it would be good for me to do more swimming, and for a lot of us to do more swimming in this metaphor, but probably literally as well. Something about embracing discomfort and welcoming a modicum of cold, pain, fear, like stepping into the coolly flowing stream, like stepping close enough to be viscerally aware of the threshold of death, the quickening of the blood, the heightening of the senses. We become more alive when we are closer to that threshold. And I'm not really, or not just talking about like mountain biking and skiing and windsurfing and the adrenaline rush chasing activities, though, yes, that principle applies there too. I'm more talking about being at the bedside when someone takes their last breath, exchanging a kind word and a moment of time with the person on the street corner, and not rushing away and not rushing on to the next thing. Being there, holding a crying child and being there to support while they feel what they need to feel, and not rushing to hush the tears, to fix things. Let it be not okay for a little while. And this dipping of ourselves into the water of grief, the following rising up out of the water like the dragonfly slowly learning to catch its breath, is a kind of baptism, no? A little death, a new beginning, and embodying a starting to heal. The next paragraph after the one that Carrie read in the book, The Flowering Wand, goes like this. At least part of it does. As men try to tend to the wounds of patriarchy, the wounds they have inflicted on others and on themselves, the roles they're trying to shed and the roles they're trying to expand into, it is important to remember that real healing cannot be rushed. If we don't emerge slowly from the shallows, we won't give our lungs time to adjust to the intoxicating chill of fresh air. If we don't give our wings time to dry, we'll never be able to fly. And I knew that caterpillars, when they disappear into the chrysalis, they do in fact utterly disappear. They completely dissolve into this primordial goo, which apparently, molecularly speaking, no longer actually resembles or pertains to the biological makeup of the caterpillar. And then these cells that they call imaginal cells in this goo are activated, and the butterfly, more or less an entirely new creature, begins to form. It's one of those things that science doesn't really know how to explain, which is awesome. Indeed, miraculous and mysterious and probably painful. But I hadn't known about dragonflies and how many times they molt and hatch and molt and hatch over and over. And when I think about the grief that I have for things that I have said, choices I have made, missteps that I have taken, friends and loved ones I have hurt in word or deed, due to my reluctance to swim in those waters of grief, that in times of grieving, not letting myself feel fully the process and depth of emotion moving through, but instead forming it into a cloak I would wear for protection. I allowed myself to do things I would later regret and come to grieve in their own right. It's a comforting thought that you can always try again. As I said before, there's a lot to grieve right now, and there always will be. So what I want to do is try to embrace the opportunity, the invitation to be more fully alive in the face of so much reason for so much sorrow, to leap into it with kindness and courage, with gentleness and grace. And another quote from Martine Prechtel, "Grief is a shameless dreamer who thinks nothing of healing impossible despair head on. It thinks nothing of impossibility, only of what makes life more deliciously alive." And I would like to read a passage from this book as the close to this message. This book is called The Lost Years of Merlin by T.A. Barron. The myth of Merlin, for me, is similar in certain ways to the myth of Jesus. There's a lot of tales about when he's very young, and then there's tales about when he's a grown adult, and not a lot about how he gets from one point to the other. And this author took the creative license to fill in that story. It's definitely in the like young adult category of things, but it's been important to me for a long time. And this passage for me is sort of the other bookend to Jerry's reading. The main character, Merlin, has climbed a tree, and a storm is approaching. He's at the top of this pine tree, and the storm is approaching across the valley, and he's watching it come. As the wind swelled, my tree started to sway. Almost like a human body, it swung back and around, gently at first, then more and more wildly. While the swaying intensified, so did my fears that the trunk might snap and hurl me to the ground. But in time, my confidence returned, amazed at how the tree could be at once so flexible and so sturdy. I held on tight as it bent and waved, twisted and swirled, slicing curves and arcs through the air. With each graceful swing, I felt less a creature of the land and more a part of the wind itself. The rain began falling, its sound merging with the splashing river and the singing trees. Branches streamed like waterfalls of green. Tiny rivers cascaded down every trunk, twisting through moss meadows and bark canyons. All the while I rode out the gale. I could not have felt wetter. I could not have felt freer. When at last the storm subsided, the entire world seemed newly born. Sunbeams danced on rain-washed leaves. Curling columns of mist rose from every glade. The forest's colors shone more vivid. Its smells struck more fresh. And I understood, for the first time in my life, that the earth was always being remade, that life was always being renewed, that it may have been the afternoon of this particular day, but it was still the very morning of creation.
Thank you, Michael. Wow. I knew I wanted him to do this. Okay. Wow. Now we'll have 2 minutes to ponder, to think, to just be in the silence with Michael's message.